This is the lecture for Charles Taylor's article Cross Purposes, the Liberal Communitarian Debate. So the first topic is liberalism and communitarianism. You're already familiar with liberalism. We've been talking about it for a while, and of course the Schlar article was just directly about that. Taylor also talks about communitarianism in this piece. So his point, as he says from like the fourth sentence or something, is that well, not the fourth Sunday. later, he'll say that he kind of he thinks these words are not very useful, and these labels are not very useful, and these categories are not very useful, so we want to get rid of them. So, I mean, in a sense, you don't need to know a lot about communitarianism because he doesn't even like the term, but he's assuming you know what the term refers to, and he doesn't do a great job explaining it because he wants to move past it. So this is just to give you some background so that you understand what's going on with communitarianism. So the communitarian view, at least the way many people see it, not the way Taylor sees it, but the way many people see it is that it's sort of a view opposed to liberalism. Liberalism is about individual freedom, and communitarianism says, no, the focus should not be on individual freedom. The focus should be on the sort of success and the flourishing of communities of people. And in some communities, of course, individual freedom ought to be promoted. So let's say you're a community that values individual freedom quite a bit, and you know this is your community. This is what your community really wants to happen, and for your community to succeed, people in your community need to be free, and so on. In that sort of community, yeah, the government should promote individual freedom, and you know we get some sort of result like liberalism. But there could be other communities that value different sorts of things. So some communities might sort of all belong to a certain religion, and in that religion, they don't really value individual freedom, they value something else. And it would sort of be a bad thing if that community decided, let's make a bunch of laws that promote individual freedom if these are going to be sort of damaging to the religion, because this is going to damage the community. It's not going to be a successful community, and like people's lives depend on living in successful communities. So you're not going to make people's lives better just by making them more free in this community. What you want to do to make people's lives better is to help the community do well. And that's going to maybe require not granting individual freedom. And sort of what's going to be good for each community is just going to depend on the community, on its cultural traditions, uh, the sorts of people who live there, the kind of history that it has, and stuff like that. And so, uh, whereas the liberal has kind of one answer for everything, which is individual freedom, and then people make up their own minds. So, like, that's one answer, but it's very vague because everybody gets to make up their own minds. Communitarianism, similarly or differently, has a bunch of different answers, but it's also sort of vague because each community gets to make up its own mind. And the communitarian thinks, look, it's just not going to work if you just give everybody a bunch of individual freedom and let them sort things out. Like humans don't work like that. Humans need to live and develop lives in communities that support them. And so what we want to do is keep these communities strong and flourishing, and so that they can help the people within them. So that's the communitarian point of view. And as you can tell from the article's title, Taylor is interested in the debate between liberals and communitarians, and you can imagine why they debate. Liberals want individual freedom. Communitarians want to sort of support communities and help communities flourish. And these can be uh, in contrast with each other. Sometimes what's best for the community is not what some individual wants. And the liberal will say, well, just let the individual do whatever they want. If this is going to destroy the community, too bad for the community. You know, people can make new communities. We can have one giant world community, whatever, like tradition and religion and culture and stuff. These are all great if people want to go along with them, but if people don't want to go along with them, they should be free to do whatever they want. And then the communitarian comes back and says, no, that's going to be a mess. Of course, we're not saying everybody has to live in some sort of dictatorship or something. What we're saying is that communities need to be able to survive and flourish, and that means sometimes people can't do just whatever they happen to do for no can't just do whatever they happen to want to do for no reason at all. The liberal wants everybody to have sort of as much freedom as possible, but no, that's just too much freedom. Sometimes some freedom is good and some freedom is bad, and if the freedom is going to destroy the community and these traditions that have persisted for generations and which bring meaning to people's lives, that's not a good kind of freedom. So that's, I mean, there's a lot more to the debate, but that's like very quickly the kind of debate. And then Taylor sort of jumps into the debate and says, here's what I think about it. Second, you'll notice the word ontology or ontological pops up a lot in this article. I think the first is in this second paragraph. So that just means having to do with what sorts of things exist. So considerations about what stuff is in the world. And I know that sounds very vague, but you know, if you just that's the definition, and if you use that when you read Taylor, it will make sense what he's saying. Finally, you know, you sometimes sometimes I explain historical stuff in these lectures. Usually I don't because it's pretty quick to look up. In the Schlar lecture, I explained some stuff about the religious wars in Europe, and I guess I'll just mention Watergate because he keeps talking about Watergate. He uses a lot of historical examples in this article, but Watergate, I think, comes up like 7 times. And in case you don't know, because at this point, this is many decades before you were born, this was the United States President Richard Nixon when his re-election campaign was coming up. He was going to run for president again. He sent some people to spy on the opposition party. He was a Republican. He sent some people to spy on the Democratic national campaign. And obviously that is bad. That's very illegal. They broke in and they installed bugs and stuff. And then even worse, he tried to cover this up when those people were caught breaking in and tried to sort of cover up his involvement. And this was a gigantic scandal in America. The extent Nixon went to cover up his involvement was sort of people got so upset with this that he was going to be removed from office, and before that could happen, he quit. But he was definitely in big trouble, and so no one was putting up with that. So that's just what Watergate was about.